Hi, I recently uploaded this video here and people were very curious about the process and how this was made, so I decided to make this video to explain everything in detail. This is not a basic tutorial, it's a bit advanced, so I'm gonna be using After Effects and Blender, and if you don't know anything about this software, it could be quite hard, but if you know the basics, maybe you can follow just step by step. So let's get into it. The first step is to import the video, which is here. We can create a new sequence by dragging this into this icon. We need to remove the background. So in the Effects tab, we are gonna look for key light. And I like adding a selective color before the key light. So in the color we choose green and we increase some of the colors and all of the colors except for magenta, and magenta goes down. Then we choose the color and magic. We are gonna do two more things. One is to set the screen mate, and here in this tab we remove the little things in the back, and with this clip white we change until we stop seeing these things. And the second step that we are gonna do, we're gonna duplicate the layer, hide this one, the top layer we are gonna delete everything, and we are gonna use this layer as a mask for the other one. So this way the noise from the chroma effect disappears somehow. I'm gonna change this setting to the layer that is underneath and this one. So now we have this, and of course we have a corner here that we don't like, so in case you need to mask, we can go up here and choose the kind of shape that you need, or you can draw the shape with the pen tool. Now we have the footage ready, so we can export. This video, as you can see, is transparent, so if we want to export this into Blender, we need to export it as a PNG sequence. Go to File, Export, Render Queue, and here the settings should be PNG sequence, and here in channels we have to say RGB plus alpha. Okay, and then you choose where you want to export it and render. When we open Blender, we have to go to the movie clip editor, and here we open and go to our sequence. Make sure that it says name in here in this arrow, because otherwise the sequence will be in a different order. You select everything with A, open clip, and we have the sequence here. You can set this in frames. This sets the beginning and the end of the timeline according to the file. Before we start tracking, we don't want to track the camera, we want to track an object. So we click here on plus and we have an object. Then we can change here the setting parameters if you want of the camera. In my case, the sensor size of my camera is this one, and this is the lens that I used. So it's done. But if you don't know, just leave it by default, and then you just have to change some things in the 3D viewport. So now what we have to do is to find points that we can track. So these points must remain from the beginning to the end of the video. There's some elements in my face, in my skin, that I can use for tracking. So I go to this track tab, and then here track, and these settings here are for tracking forward or backwards. So the way we add tracks is we press Ctrl or Command and click. This element is moved in Blender the same as any other element in the 3D viewport. So we can scale with S, we can rotate with R, and grab or move with G. I'm gonna leave it like this. And when we want to track a movement, and it's not just the point that we want to track, but like a full object that we need to extract the position, we need to track at least 8 points. So we have to go one by one. Once you have selected the ones that you want, please don't select anything on the neck, because what we want is just the head movement. If you add any other points in the neck, the position will be weird and the software won't understand how to track the shape. So once you have them, you click here. It's gonna track all the movements. So as you can see, all the points were lost in the process. So what we have to do is this not nice process in which you have to do it manually. So for example, let's go to the beginning and find this point. This point got lost here. So if you go to this tab that says track, you can see the track in this little window. And if you go to the next frame, you have to G and position the track again and continue. Sometimes it will continue until the end, and sometimes it will stop many times, so you will have to do it manually, frame by frame. So once you have everything, you need to go to Solve. And here there are some settings that we need to think about. These numbers are a moment in the timeline in which the object that you're tracking is moving in a way that the software can understand the volume somehow. You can click on keyframe and it will be automatically identified by Blender. It not always works, so you have to click on solve motion to know if it works or not. Wait a second, and then up here you see a number. This number should be 0 point something or 1 or 2 maximum. 357 is extremely bad. So we have to find it manually. For example, here, I think in this part, there's more movement to be identified. So for example, let's do 2.7 to here, let's say 273 and solve. Now the number is 3.77, which is a really high number. In this case, I'm gonna leave it like that because I just did a quick track for the video, but I don't want to spend a lot of time in each track. But the way you know if it works is with this number. You can click in each one of the tracks, and in this track tab, you see the number of each one of the tracks. So if you have tracks that are like 5, for example, and some others that are 0.1, then maybe you can remove the ones that have a bigger number and go one by one checking that. And if then you don't have enough, you don't have like 8 tracks, you have to go and search for another point to track. In this case, I'm gonna leave it like this. And once you have this, you have to go to the 3D viewport. So from now on, you will have to work always from the camera perspective. To do that, you have to press 0. So the camera resolution has to be the same as the video. So we have to do here 2.603840. And then we have to add the video to the camera. So we click on the camera and then we go to this tab, and here under background image, add image, and in this case movie clip, open. And that's it. Now, if we play here in the timeline, we play the video through the camera. So what we need to do now is to create a 3D model of a face, of a head. So in this case, I already have one, so I'm just gonna import it. This is my model. It already has the teeth inside. So I'm gonna go to the 3D viewport, and I have to reposition in the first frame my face, my real face with my 3D face. What I like doing is clicking here on wireframe, then here, so I don't see what's behind. And then in the camera, I like putting back and 100 or 1. So now I will scale. I put this 3D cursor here, so we only scale from a specific point where the cursor is. So shift and right click, you position this in some place that you want. So for example, we are gonna scale from this point. As you can see here, there's a mistake. So we don't see the same shape from my face to the real one. In this case, this model is a scan of myself, so I know the size is okay. The problem here is the camera. In this case, the focal length is 50, which actually in the video that I filmed, it was 80. So I have to move the camera again. And as you can see now, it looks a lot better. Depending on what you want to do and how precise you want to be, you might need to sculpt a bit this so it looks perfectly. Because in this case, it doesn't look perfect, but in my case, it's enough for what I want to do because I only want to change these areas. But let's just sculpt quickly so I can show you how I do it. I create a shape key, 2 actually. The second one, I take it to the highest level and then go to sculpt mode that you can actually go, you can go here where it says object mode, you can go to sculpt mode or Control Tab and then sculpt. And then you just sculpt and try to make the model look just like the footage. So let's go back to the motion tracker and I will go to geometry in the solve tab, 3D markers to mesh. And as you can see here, you have some points that are connected to the ones here. We have to go to edit mode, which is tab, or here edit mode. You have to select the markers and then mesh convex hull. As you can see, the shape is in a different position than the face. So there are 2 options. One is before doing this, you can change here the scale in object. So if I go to, for example, 10, the markers are back there. So you can just change this number until the markers are on the face. But what I prefer doing is going to the camera, Shift S and cursor to selected. So now we are gonna scale this using this as a pivot point. Let's go back to 3D cursor in this menu and scale. What this is doing is scaling this, but without affecting the perspective of the camera. Now what we need to do is to parent this object to the track. So click on the object, click on the track object, Control P, object. If we play now, nothing is moving. So we need to go to the frame in which we projected this, and then go to the Constraints tab, Object Solver, the object is the object, the camera is the camera that we are using here. Set inverse, and now it moves. I'm gonna hide this object so we don't see it anymore. So if I look through the camera now, it moves, but it's weird. So what I'm gonna do to fix this, for example, here, this means that the head is in a different position than the tracker. Again, we are gonna select the camera, Shift S, cursor to selected, and we're gonna scale the face or the head to make it closer to the camera. Just a little bit, maybe like that. And now it's fine. If the truck number, the solve number is not really good, if the tracking situation is not good, you're going to have problems like this, that at some point it just moves. You will have to animate it to fix it. So you just click I, or you can press this thing here. So every time you move, it creates a keyframe here. And you can just move this until it always keeps the right position and rotation. Once it's done, it's going to look something like this. Now we need to add any objects that we want to be on the face. I'm gonna create a circle. All right, let's parent first. How do we make these holes? So what I would suggest is to make a boolean. So let's duplicate this, Shift D, P, selection. What this is going to do is to take the selected vertices and create a new object from it, removing it from the previous one. So now we have this object here and another circle. This circle is going to be our boolean object. F, and now we go to this object, modifiers, generate boolean. We select this thing here, and if we hide it, it works. Now let's go to the other side. I recommend applying the boolean because otherwise it could flicker when the camera moves, and we don't want that. So just apply and create another one. And now when it moves, you see through it. But if I go to the render view, it's not gonna work. So what do we have to do now? First of all, light. I remember I had a light like this one around here. It was something like this. And there was another one far away, just to fill space with some light. If I render now, it looks like this. If you don't want to see all these elements, usually you click this and it hides it, but it also hides the footage. So I just disable everything here. The light is pretty similar to what I had in the footage, so we are done with this. What we want now is the opposite. So we want this to be the real footage and this to be the 3D part. Two things have to be done. One is to project the footage on the face. We select the face, modifiers, edit, UV project. You have to select any UV map, the camera where you want to project from, and when you go to the shader editor, you create a new material and import the texture image sequence. You have to click on side click and auto refresh. As you can see, it looks really weird, but we need to change this parameter. So when we play, it looks actually slower, but it looks fine-ish. We don't want this to look like this. We want this to look like this, but with the shadows projected from the objects. So let's keep this connected, increase the roughness, and go to this object tab. And here you have to select shadow capture. What this does is it only renders the shadows projected on it, but not the object itself. So if I move this, for example, you see that there are shadows. Let's add a material to these two objects. We can join them. We click both, Ctrl J. Now they are one single object. I'm gonna do here a bevel to select the whole line, Alt and click, Ctrl B, and we have this. We can increase the number of subdivisions with the wheel, mouse wheel. Since I have these elements here, I want to add a hat so I can hide, and when I do this, this is not visible. I'm gonna bring the hat. We need to parent this to the head, of course. And it's automatically creating shadows on the face. Now we have to render. Here you decide where you want to export it. Something really important is that you render in PNG RGBA, which means it has an alpha channel, so it's going to look like this. So you can just put the footage underneath this layer. Back in After Effects, we need to import the footage. I would recommend not to import the video, the original video. Instead, the PNG sequence that we exported from After Effects before. So yes, make sure that the frame rate of this video is the same frame rate as the settings in Blender. This is how it looks now. If I move, everything moves together. We need to add a background, new, solid. In this case, I'm gonna do like a reddish, darker red. Thing like that. I'm gonna pre-compose these two layers, duplicate, and this one is going to be like a shadow. So let's hide the top one, go to levels and black. Gaussian blur. It's looking good, so the last thing I'm gonna do is color correction. So new adjustment layer on top of everything, lumetri, and I'm gonna use a lute. I'm gonna combine it with another one. As you can see in my video, I added the nose piercings and some other elements that I didn't want to add in the tutorial because I didn't want to make it extremely long. It is already long, so this is actually my first tutorial. So if you want to learn anything else, if you want to say anything about the process and the video, just let me know. You know, comments, like, subscribe, and everything. Bye.